Good morning and welcome to Being More Joyful and Effective. And today we are going to talk about how to bring more joy and more effectiveness into your life. And I really think of these as two things that go together. And it's just been pointed out that probably communication is a big part of that. But, you know, Mr. Masuda created a personal development course as soon as he started the company. It wasn't always known as, and I don't have my camera on, it wasn't always known as Humans Being More. I think in the beginning he called it Silver Training. But one of the things that really impressed me when I joined the company in 2006 was that they said that Mr. Masuda on Monday mornings didn't ask how many people joined the company over the weekend. He didn't ask how much product was sold. He wanted to know how many people went to Humans Being More. And it was really something that made us stand apart because Mr. Masuda had the vision that people needed to work on themselves. And it didn't really matter if Nikan ended up being the road to that or not. He had done a lot of personal development work before he ever started this company. And my guess is he saw how that had contributed to him getting where he was. Now, I will tell you that, and if you don't know what your mission statement is, that's something that Humans Being More helps you with, and we could actually do a training on that. My mission in life is to experience and share joy. And my goal is to do that in everything that I do. And I totally believe that if I'm in that vibration of joy, then I am more effective in everything that I do. And so that's what we're going to be working on today in teaching each of you the skills, because I think it's really a skill. And how we see ourselves is very important. So I want to ask you all, let me go here, I'll share the screen again. Maybe. I love this. I've got the new PowerPoint, and it does really cool PowerPoints, and I don't have to do a whole lot about it, so I like it. But I want to know what your definition of joy is. And when I thought of this, these were the 4 components that I came up with that provide joy in my life. But what is joy to you guys?
Well, my family is.
Okay.
And I love to serve others.
Okay. What about some of the rest of you?
I would say family, peace, and service, and kind of how they all intertwine together.
Okay.
Oh, and I found this week that health is. Walk down the stairs.
I am so proud of you because, you know, something I was going to point out to you all is this. And as women, we are really bad about this. We will tend to put everyone else in front of us and care for the health of others around us and not take care of ourselves. I mean, this goes all the way back to Florence Nightingale, who died from illnesses that she became infected with in the Crimean War.
Yeah.
A doctor down in Texas, 27 years old, died this week of coronavirus, treating people. So when I thought of mine, the first thing for me was freedom, because freedom is really huge. And it's not really been all that long that I used to feel guilty of saying that freedom was that important. But freedom really is, because unless I have freedom, I can't take care of my family. I can't take care of my health, and I can't serve others. So I really loved what this showed with this when I put it together, because there were all 4 of these things, and yours can be different. But I also loved it because I have a Christian background and it made the cross. Health is central. And if I don't take care of that, I can't serve others. I won't have freedom, and I won't have the time with my family. And, you know, if I have my family, but I don't have my health, that doesn't work. If I have my family and I, you know, spend so much time with them that I can't do any other service. I mean, really, one of the things that came to light in this to me was that in order to really be in joy, we've got to figure out what those things are. And if you haven't got paper, run get it right now, because I want you to do some writing today, because this is, you got it. I want you, and you don't have to share these, but I want you to write down those things that meant joy to you.
Well, services has pretty much always been a big part of mine.
Right.
My daughter gets upset with me sometimes. She says, let things go. And as you're talking about, we do for others sometimes before we do for ourselves. But it hasn't affected my health, thank goodness. But
well, that tells me that you're still taking care of yourself. And my children used to get upset about that when they were growing up too, because I did so much volunteer work and church work and working with the homeless, and I made them work with the homeless. And I don't have any regrets at making them work with the homeless or making them go on mission trip and work for those, because I think in the end that it made them kinder people. But you've got to take care of all of these, because if you don't, then it won't work. And again, balance, I believe, truly is the key to happiness. How many of you remember the fable of the goose who laid the golden egg?
mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
So the farmer had this goose, and he noticed it made this golden egg, and he was really kind of upset about it. And he was getting ready to throw it out, and he thought, well, I ought to get it checked. And when he found out it was a gold egg, and he found out he had it appraised, it was worth so much money, well, then he was so excited. And he wanted this hen to just start laying and laying and laying and laying. And gave her food and stuff. It didn't matter. She just wasn't laying, or she wouldn't lay enough. And so he decided that he would just kill her, cut her open, and take out all the golden eggs. You know what? When he cut her open, there wasn't any golden eggs. And the hen was dead. So she obviously wasn't going to lay anymore. So I think that gives us, it's a wonderful fable. What do you think that means? Because I think there's a lot of different meanings to it, and nothing that you're thinking is wrong. And share it, because we can all benefit from what your view of it is.
I think appreciation. He had no appreciation for what he had.
That's right. That's right. You know, she was the vehicle that provided for him, but he did not value the vehicle that was provided for him. He didn't love and care and nourish. You know, he had the goal, and the goal was to get the golden egg. And it also, think about the law of germination. And any of you grew up on a farm, and I always tell you, while I grew up on a farm, I knew that we didn't put seeds out today and grab squash tomorrow. Doesn't work that way, does it? Okay. And we had three chickens. We're down to 2. One didn't come back the other day. She was the one that was going to make blue eggs. And when we got them late July, we were told that we would have eggs within a week or 2 because of the age of the chicken. Well, we've still not got the first chicken. And I'm the first egg, and I'm being patient because they haven't hit the frying pan. So obviously, you know, things work not in our time, but in other time, and you have to be patient. And that's what the farmer had to be, wasn't it? It had to nourish and take care of the vehicles that were providing for him. And then his goal could have come to be, but what happened. He lost it all. Any other thoughts about what he chose to do and what the meaning of that is?
He was greedy.
Greedy, yeah.
He was.
That's right.
Greedy and selfish.
Mhm.
It was
And
all about him, basically, what he could get.
That's right.
Instead of being task oriented to the bigger picture.
Right. Right. He was it, and it comes down to something I talked about on Wednesday night, which is doing the right thing for the right reason at the right time. You know, if you want hens to lay, you've got to try to keep them happy. You've got to give them food, and they're going to do it at their time. And you can kill them. You can eat. You know, they'll give you one good fried chicken meal. But if you are patient and keep loving and caring for them, they'll give you an egg to 2 eggs a day for a couple of years. And so having the patience and the love and caring for is, I think that that's what a lot of this is about. And I see this so much today. Everybody is looking for a shortcut in whatever they're doing. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a time. And, you know, you don't get help overnight. In fact, it happens all the time. Somebody will decide they're going to run a marathon and they don't prepare for it. And, you know, about 4 years ago, we did a Humans Being More in Raleigh, and they were running the Rock and Roll Marathon. And that morning, we were downtown Raleigh, and all of a sudden, we heard all these sirens go off. And we got out that day. A gentleman who was, I think, late 40s, early 50s, had collapsed of a heart attack and died 20 minutes after the race started. And I saw a picture of him. He was kind of chunky. I mean, it was, you know, he was not prepared.
Mm-hmm.
So it's how we prepare ourselves and work on ourselves and care for ourselves and care for those around us. That is how we get our golden eggs. And there really is a shortcut. Now, with that said, I do believe that sometimes things can happen very quickly when we are lined up with what we want and we're doing the right things. It's kind of like exponential growth happens. But we don't know what that exponential growth looks like. You know, having grown up Christian, you know, the thought was there was our time and God's time. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting to read how many times in history people have sold everything they had because the end of the world was coming, and it's not here yet. And, you know, the deal is there's God's time and our time, and it's an amount of having the faith. So one of the things I'm going to read you a little. So we've heard that, the fable of the golden egg. And now there's this. And this is a fable that I wrote about me. There was a woman who loved to teach others. She loved to give. She had so many kids, she didn't know what to do. She owned 2 businesses. She worked really hard night and day. She gave to everyone but didn't take time for herself. She was successful at everything she put her heart into. That says here, I got to add a T. But she was always sad. She didn't get to spend time she wanted with her family. She didn't get to care for her home the way she wanted. She felt tired all the time. Even though she was successful for all the world, she felt tired and unappreciated. It was time to rewrite her story. It was time to follow her dream. And that was me about 20 years ago. So I want you to take just about 5 minutes, and I want you to write a very short little fable about you. And then we will go on to the next thing. Let's see. Are you all about ready, or where you at?
I just need like 1 more minute or so.
Okay, that's fine. I'll give you that. No problem.
This is interesting.
You know what? There in doing things that develop you personally. It's one of the things that I think keeps people going. Some of you, I've trained hypnotherapy and NLP for about 24 years, and my mentor is 86 years old, and he continues to do personal development ongoing, and
Still don't have it.
what his next business will be.
I'm trying to get Kathy on.
Oh, did she get the link?
She says not, and I've sent it, so hopefully she'll get it.
Okay,
And
well,
I'm sorry, I had a phone call. Sherry's truck broke down on her, so I missed what we're supposed to be doing.
okay, what you're doing, and let me go back and I'll read this to you. So, we read the fable of the chicken that laid the golden egg, and now you're going to write your little fable. And this is one that would have been me 20 years ago. There was a woman who loved to teach others. She loved to give. She had so many kids, she didn't know what to do. She owned 2 businesses. She worked really hard night and day. She gave to everyone but didn't take time for herself. She was successful at everything she put her heart into, but she was sad. She didn't get to spend the time she wanted with her family. She didn't get to take care of her home the way she wanted. She felt tired all the time. She even was successful. Even though she was successful for all the world, she felt tired and unappreciated. It was time to rewrite her story. It was time to follow her dream. So you can write that. You can kind of think about it. And any of this you want to do, you can go back. And I will send the slides to any of you who want them afterwards. Because one of the things I want you to do is, as you go through this today, then the next step will be for you to teach some other people. You know, learn one, do one, teach one. And everything that we've got here can help people in almost any walk of life. Now, nobody has to, but is there anybody that would like to share their short fable?
I hear a giggle from Cece.
Because I always know, I feel like I should just do it because nobody's gonna do it.
Do it. I love just do it.
And then I can hear Kimball doing her little dance.
There we go.
Okay. Holy cow, this is a lot. Okay, there was a woman who took care of all the land, her elders, her husband, her children, her home, and all the little children around her. Her husband left her, but she never stopped. She always knew Jesus, and he is love. So she continued. After many years, she was finally finding a balance in taking care of everything, her new husband, her children, and everyone around her. Then one day she fell and continued to fall. After all the dominoes fell with her, she learned she must be first in order to take care of all. She learned to accept help and get better in finding that loving balance.
Very good. I like
Very
that.
good, yes.
Anybody else want to share?
I'll read mine.
Okay.
There was a lady who tried to do everything for others, but did not always take care of herself. She appears to be happy, but always torn inside. Never feel like she does enough. Feels sad and crazy. Wait a minute.
No worries.
Feels sad and crazy. Let me find my place. Sometimes, and maybe even guilty for feeling that way. Feels like she never gives enough.
Okay.
That's it in a nutshell.
Anybody else want to share?
I'll share mine.
Okay, go, Elizabeth.
There was a beautiful angel who fell from the heavens. She lived her life on earth as if it was the only home she'd ever known. The will of man tried to hurt her and break her spirit, but she knew God's love. She shared that love with her son and taught him to love one another, even when others may try to put us asunder. Then one day she met a God-fearing man and peace overwhelmed her. Her heart was so full and she knew all the negatives on her path were just to test her soul's intention. God is good every day, so keep your heart open and be the best human being you can be. When we don't take things personal and we try our very best, God puts your path right at your feet. So just keep walking in faith and spread joy and ease to all you see.
Very good. Anybody else want to share? And it's not required. All right, we will go on. Most of what I'm sharing today is coming from Covey's 7 principles. And now I've got to find them. All right, so the 7 habits of effective people, and I'm sure, how many of you have read Covey's 7 principles?
I haven't yet.
Okay. It's one that I would suggest you get, and it's a book that you read through once, and then you just kind of work with it. But I love the 7 principles. The first one is be proactive. Second is begin with the end in mind. The third is put first things first. The fourth is think win-win. Fifth is seek first to understand and be understood. The sixth is synergize, and the 7th is sharpen the saw. And sometimes I think the best way to think about them is to think about what life is like when you don't do these. So, number 1, don't ever think ahead. Just hop up and do whatever comes to you that you want to do in that moment, and don't worry at all about consequences, and just run right off that cliff. Think about what you want to do right now. Who cares about what's going to happen 5 years from now? Who cares about your health? Run out there without that mask and get into a whole bunch of people and breathe on them. Don't worry about what you eat. Heck, tomorrow you may die. Do whatever feels good. Don't worry about what ought to come first. If you want to take a nap and you need to call and check on a friend, don't worry about that. Just take the nap. Don't worry about win-win. To heck with everybody else. Just do what you want and push your way through. People need to understand you. Why you need to understand them? Let them spend their time understanding you. Who wants to work together? I'd rather be an island. I'd rather do it all by myself. And heck with learning anything new. I've learned enough in my life. So that's what life is like without the 7 principles. Is that the life that you would want to live? And I will tell you that one of the things that concerns me in our society today, when I start looking, is that there's a lot of people that are not living a principle-centered life. They are living just like that. And it's very sad because it has a very bad ending. A very bad ending. Can Kathy not click on the link and get in, Shirley? Jeff, will you see if you can get the link and just text it directly to her phone so she can click on it from the phone or the thing? Okay, Jeff will try to send it to her again. Did she click on the link?
I know the link in the email wasn't a link. It was actually just the numbers, so you actually had to punch it all in.
Right, but this morning, Shirley and Betty hadn't opened the email, so then anybody that hadn't opened it, Jeff sent it back to.
Yeah, I had to do is click on the link, and it took me straight to you.
Yeah, well, Jeff's going to try to send it to her again because I want her to be able to get it. So, All
I
right.
just didn't remember where it was. That was my problem. I thought it was going to be on a text and whatever. Yeah.
Mine was in
I'm here.
junkie.
I understand. I mean, I complain about this all the time when I'm not doing it, but you know, we do communicate way different ways. So I want to tell you, behind every one of the principles is there's a foundation for those. And the first principle is be proactive. Well, how do you do that? That means that you are continuously learning. You're being re-educated and you have discipline. You never know it all. I can't tell you how many times I've read Covey's book. And when my coach told me about 3 weeks ago that he wanted me to read First Things First and the 7 Principles, I thought, you know, I've already read those so many times. But what was very interesting to me, and I'll share that as we go through this, is a change that I have seen that has happened in my behavior. Because every time you read and learn something, if it's something really good like Think and Grow Rich or 7 Habits, it is something that goes deeper. It's almost like our CM cream. You know, we rub it on and it goes in, and then you rub it on again and it goes in. And it's very, very helpful. Begin with the end in mind. And what's the foundation with that? Principle of service, of giving of oneself to others. So, you know, I'm always saying this again and again, that what you give out to the universe is what will come back to you. If you send out love and light, if you send out patience, if you send out goodness, it will come back to you. And I'll tell you what else. It's much easier to send out goodness and light when people are really lovable and nice. However, if you send out love and light when people are really nasty, it can come back as well. I mean, years ago, when I worked in the state hospital, I worked with people that had gotten there by committing crimes due to their mental illness. And they always called me Mary Sunshine. And I can remember one guy that had done a huge amount of brain damage to a number of nurses in the 20 years he'd been there. He had killed someone before he came in. But I was always very nice to him, and he would like to come and sit and talk with me. And the techs were always so worried. And he said, oh, I would never hurt her. And there was something happened one day on the wards. We would have what we call pits. When a patient would become combative, then it would go off on the loudspeaker where someone needed help. And I was on a unit one day where all of the people had criminal charges. And I told the 2 techs to go, and I thought that I had a 3rd tech on the ward, and I didn't. And suddenly when that door closed and locked, I realized that I was there by myself with 21 males who all were there because of mental illness and criminal charges. And they realized it very quickly. And there were about 6 of the biggest guys that came and stood around me, and they said, you all better leave her alone till they get back. And when they got to the pit, the guys were like, oh, God, Kimball's back there by herself. And 2 or 3 of them went running back, and they came back, and they couldn't believe it because these guys had made sure that I was protected. And so I really think when you send the positive out, it comes back to you. Put first things first. You know what? Nobody ever learned how to walk without crawling. So you've got to figure out, and you remember I was talking a few minutes ago, you don't skip steps to success. And it's okay. Don't worry about it. You know, as you start and are focusing in your life on whatever the goal is that you want, and you are just doing the simple things, then it really starts happening. You think win-win. What can you do that will be a win for you and a win for the other person and how many other people? Well, what's the foundation for that? Principle of treating others as individuals who have great potential. You know, people are always our greatest asset, whether they are our family, whether they are our friends, whether they are our customers, whether they're our team. People are everything. And when you have the intention that you're going to do something good for that other person, whether it benefits you immediately, you're sowing a seed that will germinate and bring something really, really good. So it's really important what that intention is and how you set up the win-win. Seek first to be understood, understand, and then to be understood. And what's behind that is the principle of balance resulting from identifying your roles and balancing your time. You know, how do you bring that balance? I mean, how do you spend enough time listening before you talk? And sometimes listening can be a long time. I will tell you that I've shared with you all in my business, I'm using something called Fly Broadcast. And this week I was making 20 calls a day. And today I've still got 16 people I've got to follow up with that called me back that I haven't gotten to. And several of these people I hadn't talked to in a long time, and they have called back 5 or 6 times. I mean, it's obvious they really want to connect and see what I had to say to them. But one of the ladies I talked to yesterday, I didn't know a lot about her history before, but yesterday we talked for over an hour. And when we got off the phone, just before I got off the phone, I asked her about, you know, if she knew anybody had products. And all. In the course of the conversation, she's bought products, but she had never looked through the catalog. She didn't know we had nutritionals, and she's very interested in our shake. But she said, you know what? I want you to put that shake on auto ship for me. And I said, because I was going to send her samples. She said, well, let's not worry about the samples. You just go ahead and put that on auto ship and send it to me. I want to get started with that. If it's that good, helping you. But then she wrote me the sweetest email last night because he said, 2 years old. He has a sister who's in poor health that lives several hours away. She doesn't have any children. She doesn't have any family. She's got a boyfriend in Nevada who's taking care of a sick sister. And she's very much alone. And this has created more for her. So, I mean, when I called her, I didn't have any agenda but to catch up with her. And then at the end, I was going to tell her something I needed if you knew anybody who was interested. Well, you know, what's developing is she and I have a lot of similar interests. She's a therapist, too, up in New Jersey. And, you know, I'm developing a friendship. But, you know, it was a win-win. It wasn't all about me. And I talked to her, you know, for over an hour, you know, with no agenda and listening to her. I wanted to understand her. And, you know, it made a huge difference. So then it's Synergize. And the foundation for Synergize is the principle of spontaneity, serendipity, experience life as an adventure. And you know what? We decide on our own if life is an adventure or not. And you all have probably known me long enough that you've heard me talk about Helen Keller and my thoughts about her and the fact that she couldn't see and she couldn't hear. And then when I went to Japan, found out that in her 80s, when people weren't traveling a huge amount transatlantically, she went to Japan multiple times, and the last time in her 80s. And one of her quotes was, life is a grand adventure or nothing at all. And if we choose, particularly at this point in time, to think of this pandemic as an ending to a way of life or an ending of the world, then I will promise you that that is exactly what you will see. But if you tend to look at this as a great opportunity and look for those opportunities, you will find that. And it really is all in you, just really being excited about the experience. And the last one is the Sharpen the Saw. And that's a principle of consistent renewal in your physical, spiritual, mental, social, emotional life. It is so, so important that we are constantly looking at those things. And these were Covey's principles. Well, does that make you think anything about Nikan? Healthy mind, healthy body, healthy family, healthy finances, healthy society. You know, it's written about in many different ways, but, you know, that's what excites me about this company. And one of the prospects that I'm working with right now that's looking at joining, she's in another network marketing company. She says, but we like have one product and it's all about selling that product. And Nikin is just so much more. And you know why Nikin's more is because we're not a product driven company. Did you ever think about that? Mm-hmm. We are a company that is built on principles. Healthy mind, healthy body, healthy family, healthy finances, healthy society. The products change. Now, I don't believe there'll ever be a time that we don't have magnetics, and the insoles will always be there. But when I joined the company 14.5 years ago, our number one seller was the insoles. Mm-hmm. The number one seller today is immunity, followed by lactoferrin. Why is that? Well, right now, what are people thinking about? The quickest way. And I mean, and it's true. Now, wearing those insoles will definitely strengthen your immune system. And let me tell you, for anybody, my little heart is breaking today. One of my 80-some-year-old customers fell down a flight of stairs 2 days ago.
Oh, no.
Risk in multiple places, had a small brain bleed that they seemed to be able to stop, broke 3 ribs. And you know what? Guess what she wasn't wearing? Her insole. Because she walks around the house barefooted all the time. Let me tell you, if you have issues with balance, you need to put on shoes.
Yeah,
I go through this with elderly people all the time. Well, I don't wear nothing but house shoes. Well, you don't have to, but you may fall and break your neck. I mean, one of her friends said, well, I guess those magnets didn't stop her. I said, was she wearing them? And she said, well, yeah, she was barefoot. I said, yeah, it's really funny. But people today, what is the quickest thing they can do? And it's true. It won't have the effect on your immune system that it would that if you were taking lactoferrin and immunity every day for several years. But you know what? You can take it today and you'll have some improvement today. Mm-hmm. And people are at. So our products will change, but the company is a company that's built on principles and vision and on people being important. And that is what really draws me to this. And one of the things that my coach has brought clear to me is that the training that we do, you'll learn about the products. If every single one of you go in to Nikin and read the descriptions and the details and all of that, there really is a huge amount of information on those products. And everything that's on there actually is stuff you can legitimately say to people, and the FTC will not come after you. Very carefully. It's not going to tell you like the stuff like if you've got hip pain, what's best or whatever. And we can't put that out there. But that's where we can all help each other in talking to people about that. There's a huge amount of information on that. But the part that we've got to educate people on as they come in is that bigger vision, the principles behind what we're doing and why we're doing it and why you do what you do when you do it. So, oh no, I didn't mean to do that. All right, let me get this. So what is your strongest habit? And I'll go back up here so you can see them. Which habit do you think that you are the very best
at? I think the 5th one for me, seek first to understand, then be understood, because it works with the analytical part of my brain and why I love researching things so much.
Okay.
I think I'm going to be proactive.
Yep.
She said, yep. Thanks, Kimball.
Well, you know what? Proactive is mine. And I will tell you that Covey said that there, and all of us have our strongest, and we'll talk in a minute about where we need to work toward. But working very hard on the first 3 and then focusing on the next 3 and then the next 2 is what he said is very important. But it's okay if seeking first to, if yours is seek first to understand and then be understood, that it's fine for that to be your strongest and you be working on them in the other way too. I mean, we all, like I said, we all have something, but looking at these and working at all of them. And I will tell you that I have really been focusing on these over the last 3 weeks. And I've seen a huge transformation in not only what I'm producing, but also how I'm feeling. I feel so much more in control. And yet in some ways I'm actually getting a whole lot more done, and I really like that. And I'm noticing that I have more time because I'm taking the time to do the things that I want to do, the things that build me up. And when you take the time to do the things that nourish you, then you have more energy in those other hours. Anybody else want to share what their most strong habit is? Okay, effective people are guided by their own dreams, make decisions according to their principles, and they are in control of their lives. When do you have the most joy? When you feel like you're living your dreams or working towards your dreams, or when you are just going through the motions? This is an interactive part, just to let you know.
I feel like that I'm guided by my dreams, but I also make decisions according to their principles. Is that what you're wanting to know?
No, there's a difference. Okay, so when I get up now, I think about the fact, because one of the things I started working on months ago was what my ideal life would look like. And my ideal life, I would exercise every single morning. Now, if I were going to do it just for me instead of making it a win-win, I would dance Nia. But my husband is not going to dance Nia every morning. And I am really concerned about his cardiac health because he's at a high risk because of his family. And he likes to walk. So I decided, and he wanted to walk. So we started walking. And I walk, and if you ever see me walking, I'm swinging my hips and working on the roll through, which is some of the Nia techniques. I walk Nia. So what would I be doing on my ideal day? Well, every morning I would be working out. Many mornings I would stop at a coffee shop. Just sitting and having the coffee it's just to have that time with him and to enjoy that time. Now usually it's on the weekends when we get to do that. We don't do it during the week because there's too much. I was already doing this. I was already writing all of my goals each morning as I got started. Then I would come back and set my priorities for the day. And so and when I started doing, when I got there, because exercise is huge for me, and I really stopped it pretty dead when the epidemic started and we were locked down. I was doing it some, but it really took a back seat in my life. So I knew that I started feeling good, but I just started feeling renewed. And then a few weeks ago, when I started looking at my time and making it my goal that I was going to get 8 hours of sleep a night, I was going to have 8 hours of work a day, and I was going to have 8 hours of activities that built me up. It was amazing, like I said, the difference in how I felt. I'm living according to my dreams. I'm making decisions according to principles. Every time something comes up, when I get ready to do something, I think about, is this something that is urgent? Is it urgent important? Is it important, or is it not urgent, not important? And, then I choose what I'm going to do. So I feel very in control, and I'm doing the right things for the right reasons, and I'm much, much happier. But if I feel like, oh gosh, I've got to do these sessions with these people who are half-hearted and it's not what I want to do, and I've got to make these calls today, but I'm really tired and I'd really rather just lay on the couch, but I'm doing it because I've got to do it. Or this person called and he wants this information written down and put in a spreadsheet and got right back to him, so I'm going to do it because that's what he wants. When is the joy there in my life? And you don't have to answer, but just think about this. How many of you?
You don't have it. I answered, but I was muted. Sorry.
Oh, okay. You don't have it. And how many of you are spending, and some of it, you're going to do the same things, but you change the way you feel about it. You change your belief. And you make sure that you're making enough choices of the things that you're working on to live your dream. And that's what effective people are doing. Effective people are not living someone else's life or someone else's priorities. They're living theirs. Now, part of that is sometimes being grateful that you're going through hard times. You know, be grateful for everything. Be grateful. And sometimes that's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Every morning, I start off my mornings when I wake up. I thank God for I find 3 things to be grateful for. And every night before I go to bed, that's the last thing I do. And sometimes I choose to be grateful for something that may have been a real hardship, because I know that out of the hardship, we are shaped.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are grateful for everything, if we can see the good in everything, and I don't want to be too preachy. My orientation for faith and religion is the Bible, and Romans 8:28 says, all things work for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to their purpose. So what does that leave out? Nothing. So, you know, but these are all mind shifts. You know, nothing that I am teaching you today is something that you haven't heard before, and that's okay. Because we learn things at different levels. And when we feel stuck or we're not getting where we want to be, and this isn't just Nika, this is all in your life. The things that you might want to be using this for may be in your family pillar. It may be in your societal pillar. You know, I don't know exactly where it is, but, you know, it's all about that. And so 3 paradigms of maturity that Stephen Covey says, and we're going to look at this, is dependence. You must take care of me. And independent, I am self-reliant. And interdependent, we can do it. That's when we work together. Now, I want somebody to describe to me, and you can think about a person that is a dependent person.
What do you want us to describe the dependent person?
Yeah. Somebody in your life that is dependent. How do they live?
Can it be my dog?
It could be.
Well, because my little Stella's dependent on me. I just told my son this yesterday. She can't fill up her own water bowl or her own food bowl or take herself out to go to the bathroom. So she's 100% dependent on us for her needs. Even her love that we give her, she's dependent on that. And children are that way up until they get to a point where you're ready to shove them out of the house. You know, they're completely dependent on you. It's no different than a pet, other than it's a human. But I mean, I look at my pet as my little human. But they're dependent on you. They have to depend on you for food, for financial security, for love security, for everything. Not just one particular thing, but pretty much their overall life and adjustment. So, I mean, that's the way I see it.
And there are times in life where it's perfectly okay to be dependent. Little baby, dependent is all there is. And they are like, you take care of me. And little babies are pretty loud about letting you know that you take care of them. And then as they age, you know, if no other time, just before we die, we are dependent.
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of the cycle of life. So there are times that it's good, but, you know, if you're 30 years old and all you're ever saying is you take care of me, you owe me, you must, that's not very healthy, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think in this country that we think of independence as being healthy. Because the United States is a I, me, my society. I take care of me. It's all up to me. I'll do it. I'll do it my way. You know, Frank Sinatra made a ton of money out of My Way. And long after his death, people loved that song, My Way. And I'll do it. And you know what? It is good to be able to take care of yourself. And certainly by the time you're an adult, you should be. In fact, if we are good parents, when our kids reach 18, they leave the nest and they begin to financially take care of themselves. They begin to emotionally take care of themselves. They become a good citizen that is helping out in our society. And I tell parents all the time, that's the goal of a parent. And everything else is, you know, carries on top. It's really creating a good citizen. But no one is an island. And it's one of the things that has always bothered me about the United States, as much as I love it, is we are an I, me, my society and always have been. And it has really kicked us in the butt with this pandemic. Because, see, we're all interdependent on each other, not getting sick. I wear my mask to protect you. And you wear your mask to protect me. And I don't go out without my mask. And I see people not wearing theirs, so they don't give one iota about me. They are more interested in not wearing their mask. And that's just sad. And that's how we are. Now, when I was visiting Japan, it's very different. I mean, I was there in the summer, and these people, I was with a mask on. If they thought that they had anything wrong with them, that they were sick, they went out with a mask. And that's been going on since SARS hit in the early 2000s. Because they are just that dedicated to the cold. They are a we, us society. Latin America is we, us. Native Americans are we, us. Europeans are I, me, my. Although they're not nearly as I, me, my as Americans. They are just, we are probably the most I, me, my of anybody in the world. So independence is something we strive for. But the highest level is interdependence. That's what we are, that's what we really want to focus on. So in order to be, people that are interdependent tend to choose proactive verbiage. I choose happiness. I choose failure. I choose courage. I choose fear. What do you choose? And you might say, well, I've never chosen failure. And I would disagree. Because see, we make choices. In fact, it's impossible not to make a choice. And when people are working towards a goal, and maybe it's the right decision to do that, but when they decide to quit, have they chosen failure?
Right.
You know, people say, well, I wouldn't choose fear, but you do. You know, one of my favorite things by Wayne Dyer is he says, we choose where we live in a safe world or if we live in a scary world. And you choose it. And if you get up every morning and say, I live in a safe world, I'm living in my own bubble, and I'm taking care of myself, you will feel differently when you go out. And did you know, by the way, that when you say that you even affect your immune system? You go out saying this is a scary world where bad things happen, and you will, as a nurse, I'm going to tell you, I didn't work in the hospital but about 3 years, but we never wanted to take a patient to surgery who was afraid they were going to die, because when you roll somebody into the OR telling you they're going to die, and that's what they're thinking, I'm just telling you. That's probably, even if they don't die, they've got the best chance of not doing well.
I've known of people that surgery was postponed until they could have a better attitude.
Right. We have the freedom to choose. And that makes us different from every other animal on the planet, because other animals don't, they don't choose how they feel. They just have to roll along. I mean, the dog smells food and he eats. The dog hears something in the bushes and he runs away. But he doesn't have that ability to choose. And there's always a stimulus, and then there's a response, and we have to figure out the language that we use in between it. And that language that we use affects what we do. So we're going to do a little scavenger hunt right now. The person that gets something, and I got to get off of screen share to do, the person that gets brings the thing back to the camera first is going to get a roll of tape that I'll mail out to you on Monday. So I want you to grab something in your home that you see every day that reminds you to live your life according to your dreams. 1, 2, 3, go. She's got it.
Somebody already
We
got
don't
it.
have to go anywhere, huh?
All right, Cece, tell us about it and tell us what it means to you.
This is my water, my Pie Mag water. It also has, "Here am I, send me," Isaiah 6:8, my Jesus. It has my direction, because I come from many places. My children have put stickers on here, so it has my children. My husband is on here. This is my life. If I don't have this one, I have the other one, and they have put everything on it, and what I need inside of it is life. So that's one thing that I have.
You
That's
know
great.
what? I would suggest that you do a brief video and explain that, 30 seconds or less, which you can do, and put it up on your Nikin Facebook wall.
Okay.
One of the things about Facebook is people want to get to know you. And that is just beautiful. And, that's really what this company is all about. It's about health. It's about family. That would be a wonderful thing to share if you're comfortable.
Okay.
Because why do people do business with you? Riri?
No, like,
They
and
like
trust.
you, they trust you.
Here
No.
goes Jeff sneaking in the back door.
Good for that. He's very good at keeping me on my toes. So now we are going to go back and I'll share again. All right. So something happens, and then there's language in between, and that's how we respond. So there's stimulus and response. And anything that happens to you, and I don't care how good or how bad it is, you choose how you're going to respond. If somebody's ugly to you, you choose how you're going to respond. I will tell you, this is kind of a sad thing for me. When I was in my 20s and my 30s, I was much better about being nice when somebody was mean or ugly to me than I am today.
That's because in your 20s and 30s, people were nicer, and now they're ugly.
Well, but when somebody was ugly, I was always the person that went to diffuse the situations when I worked in the hospital. When I owned the H&R Block office, I was always the one that called and talked to people when they were nasty. I mean, my ex-husband would get in knockdown, drag out fights, and I said, I really don't think that's very smart. And usually I could talk, and I'll tell you who I know that's better than this than anybody else on the planet, and that's Sheila, who's on the call, because she used to be my office manager. And as she is aged, she hasn't lost that ability. She is the best. In fact, one of my customers the other day was saying, you know what, I miss Sheila.
Mm-hmm.
Sheila could make anything better. I mean, it didn't matter. She was just, and you know what it is it's when we have that stimulus, what are the things that we're saying to ourselves and how are we responding? Some of you have been through Nikon's Humans Being More and some haven't, but we've got an exercise where someone treats you in a certain way and you decide whether you're going to turn away and not even look at them, shake their hand, or hug them. And they go through reading it, and then you make a decision. And we do this for a while, and then we go back and they tell you why. And there's a story that you probably heard. It comes from Covey's book. And he talks about being on a subway in New York, and this man got on with these kids, and they were just screaming and running, and everybody was looking at him. And Covey said, after a while, I was like, I got to say something to him. And he sat down beside him, and he said, look, you really need to get your kids under control. They're disturbing everybody on this train. And the man looked at him and looked a little startled, and he said, you know what, you're right. I really wasn't even paying attention. He said, I'm going to say something to him. He said, their mother died about 30 minutes ago when we just left the hospital, and I don't think they really know how to react or what to do either. Mm. Now, you feel very differently about that gentleman hearing that, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
And we don't ever know what another person is going through and why they're responding the way they do. And none of us is perfect, and none of us is ever always going to get that right, I promise you. But we have the control between the stimulus and response to use the language in our own heads and to respond the way that we choose. What words do you use when you're proactive? I want you to think about that. What are some proactive words that you use in situations between stimulus and response?
I say talk in a happy voice.
Like,
and I say don't worry about them. Sorry, Miss Betty.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, when I deal with people that had issues for years and years and years, I just tried to be kind and think of how I would want to be treated, mm-hmm. and try to be understanding when I'm giving a response or whatever.
Mm-hmm. The words that we use in talking to ourselves about the people will have a huge effect. And, and part of that is being proactive. Because I will tell you, if we tell ourselves a story that the person is just being mean or this is just a terrible situation, our response will be very different.
Mm-hmm. I remember standing at the teller line with a customer cussing me out. Horrible language, very abusive. And my thoughts were, and I still, I guess, tend to do this, somebody took their candy. That's my thought. Somebody took their candy this morning. This person needs some help. So I just try to be as nice as I can, Like Betty said, you try to treat them like you want to be treated,
And, sometimes people will make you that, and sometimes they won't. But it doesn't matter, because you know what? When you walk away feeling differently about yourself. Because who on here really feels good when they're mad?
Well,
There's any kind of, I mean, that is not a day at the amusement park, being angry.
well, I had a customer, a couple of tellers down, when they finished their transaction, walk up and interrupt the customer that I had in front of me and thank me for the way I treated that person, because their thoughts were the same as mine. But I was just fortunate, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
God helps you get through it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And the ladies that worked for me would always say, well, I told them the same thing you did. And I said, but it's in how you present it. It's how you let them think you are taking care of them, you know.
Well, you know, even last week, you know, the story that I told you on Wednesday night, the lady that I told you about that said, you know, you couldn't put tape on your knuckles.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
the lady that fell down the stairs.
Oh,
Oh,
Oh
no.
no.
I mean, she was really kind of snippy with me. Well, you can't put tape on your fingers. It won't stay there. I'm going to take my Motrin. And I was like, okay, I hope that's going to work for you. I mean, I was just as nice as I could be about it. What was funny was when she, you know, messaged me an hour later that I don't think I hardly got out of the door before she put the tape on there. And then she
Mm.
that because I'm telling you, I told her about wearing those insoles in her shoes and putting on tennis shoes and wearing them and keeping them on. But, you know, lead a horse, can't make him drink. So, I mean, you know, but I was nice. And if we're nice, I've got a lady that I sold a water system to some years back, and then the Kangen woman completely convinced her that that water system was useless. And she called Nikin and was very unkind about some of the things she said to me, and they weren't true. And Nikin did a call with us. But I will tell you that that lady and I are in, and for a long time,
No, you're fine. It's okay.
I saw her there, I cringed. But we've been in a networking group together now for about 6 months. And she and I have developed a really good friendship. In fact, about 6 weeks ago, I let her borrow our Sequoia to carry, to pick up 2 electric wheelchairs that were being sent to a family member of hers in Chile. She didn't have any way to get them, and she put something out in our group, and I said, sure, you can use our Sequoia. You know, some other people, and they said, well, rent a truck, do this. I knew money was an issue. Sure, you can use it. And we are very supportive of each other and have worked past that. I mean, I could have chosen to stay angry with her forever. But, you know, it wasn't worth it.
It's not.
And let me tell you something. When you use proactive language, you will feel more in control. I can do this. I will do this. I prefer to do this. When we feel in control, we just do better in all areas. Proactive people always know they have choices. Now, when I teach seminars for coaching or I work with patients, one of the things that I teach them is a surefire way to feel better about any situation. And that's worth, when somebody's coaching with me, they will spend $500 a month. And if you're my patient, you'll spend about $100 to $125 for an hour. So this is really good stuff I'm giving you. It has value. Whenever you're in a situation and you feel like there's nothing you can do or you only have one thing to do, you are trapped and you are going to feel terrible. And I'm going to tell you it's a lie, because you can always find 3 things you can do. Now, I always use my misfortunes and where I feel like I'm bumping into walls to let you know. So last Monday morning, I've got a short in the scroll bar on my computer. And sometimes it goes bonkers. It's going to have to be replaced, but it's a long story. My Apple Care is not going to cover it, and I think it's probably going to be $600 to $1,000, and it could be less, but I just haven't, and I haven't given the computer up. So last Monday, It went absolutely crazy. In fact, you know how when you got two keys down, your computer go bing, 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 bing. Well, it was doing that while I was on Zoom doing sessions. I mean, I could hold the scroll bar down and stop it, and then I couldn't even do that, and it was flashing all over the place, and it was crazy. And then I called, and I found out that they said that I had to take a number to get it fixed because the Apple stores are closed, and it could be 2 to 3 weeks before they'd be able to do the diagnosis. Anyway, what this is looking, it's 4 weeks without a computer. And I was like, I can't do this. I'm going to go crazy. There's nothing I can do. And then I was like, wait a minute. Now, what reminded me of that was when my youngest was 6 years old, we got flooded. And we had 2 brand new computers and 2 old computers, and every computer we got baptized. They were dead as doornails. 5 feet of water came in our house. And my 6-year-old looked at me and said, Mama, how are we going to live? We don't even have a computer. Well, this was 1996. There were plenty of people who didn't have computers. I looked at him and I was like, you know what? I'm not sure we can continue living in our house. On the list of things, that's really the little stuff. But spring forward, 20 years, and I was like, how can I live without a computer? And then I was like, well, just calm down, because what are you going to do? This thing's shorting out. You got no choice over that, so what are you going to do? So I called my friend who does computer repair, and he said, well, I can change it out for you. I have a computer that he's working on selling for me, an older Mac. And I was like, well, I can bring that one. I want you to get it back, and it's going to be my backup. I'm going to get it. And Jeff has tried to get me to keep it as a backup anyway. And I was like, oh, I don't need a backup computer. Well, I think I do. So I'm going to get that done. And, well, I'm going to make sure that I turn this one off every night until he gets the repair made. So there are 3 things that I could do. Now, a 4th would be that I could put in the time and learn how to work on an IBM computer again. It is not something I want to do, but that is another choice. Another choice would be that I've got my iPad right here, and I work on Word in the cloud with 360. I could use that with this. Do you see that there are lots and lots and lots of different options? And always when you feel like you're at a dead end, just stop everything, and you find 3 things you can do. And I will promise you that when you find those 3 things, you will be in that proactive space, and you will feel differently. And when you feel differently, you will act differently. And the feeling different was because you started thinking different. So, we are so much more in control than we know. Let me share again. And one day I'll learn again how to make this thing show up the way it should. But now, you want to know how to know somebody that's reactive? The lady last Saturday, I can't put tape on my hands. You know that's not going to work. You know it's going to come up. She was in reactive language. I offered something. No. I must get this done. I must. And now Jeff Isom sometimes says that if you say must, you feel like you've got to. But must is like there's somebody standing over my back with a whip. And if I don't do it, he's going to pop it. And you might get it done, but you're not going to have any fun with it. If only. And as people age, this is something that I hear reactive. If only I'd known that when I was 20. If only I had done that when I was 30. If only, if only, if only. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, my woman. I love this woman. At 67, she had not been a workout queen. At 67, when she had finished cancer rounds the first time, her husband said, you need to work out. You need to get stronger. It will help you. Since that time, twice a week, she had worked with a personal trainer, an ex-Marine. at the front of her coffin yesterday when he said goodbye, he jumped down in full suit and gave 30 push-ups in front of her coffin. He didn't worry about being 67. She didn't worry about being a cancer survivor. You know what? She didn't make her goal. Her goal was to leave the court and retire at 90, the way Justice Stevens did. But you know what? She made it to 87 with how many bouts of cancer? Because she never gave up. She didn't say if only. She didn't say I can't. She was like, I'm going to do it. And it's pretty darn good to make it to 87 with battling cancer the way she did. And she's still changing the world. She's the first woman to ever lay in state at the Capitol, the first woman, and the first Jewish person. So even in her death, she is still a trailblazer, but she didn't do it by using reactive language. So reactive people believe they have no choice. So I've given you something to carry with you today that will give you more choice. All right, now I want you to list 3 events in the last 2 weeks that you have responded to in a reactive way. You don't have to share these. I'm not going to make you do that. But because I know you've done it, because I know I've done it. I told you the first thing that happened was I started freaking out. In fact, I missed doing a one-on-one on Tuesday because I freaked out so about my computer and that I wasn't going to be able to, to work. So list 3 things.
You mean that I got upset with?
Yeah, that you were like, I can't do this. You just kind of blew the wad, as I say. Your first thought was, the sky's falling.
Okay, so I guess I'm I don't know what I am, but you can find a word. I don't do that.
Ah.
I think because of my medical situations that have caught me off guard, those are all things that could eliminate me. And there's not one thing in the world that can get me to that place except for those things. And I think I vowed that there was way more important things in life to be angry about. And if I can't walk, I'm alive. And there's no reason I can be mad that my pool might have a little bit of green in it, or the guy cut me off when I was driving. I think I just changed my whole outlook when all the medical stuff happened, because I knew I wasn't in control, but there's no reason to be mad at really anything in my world anyway.
In my 20s, that I did a stint where I just worked with people who had terminal cancer. And I've often said that they taught me more about living than any course or anything I've ever done in my life. And a bunch of them were people who we called exceptional cancer patients. And they were the people that they said, you're going to die. And by golly, they didn't do it.
Yeah. And
when I look at this from this perspective, when they got that cancer, some of them said, oh, I've not always been like this. This is new. But they did they moved from the reactive space to the proactive space.
Yeah, I was mad. I was real mad back then because I couldn't do anything, and it really did hinder my life completely. Because I didn't do anything. I didn't feel good enough to do anything, and I couldn't walk, and everything inside my brain wasn't working right, and I was mad. I just wanted to run, physically run.
Right.
But it was not worth it to be mad. Jesus doesn't want me to be mad. I can't be mad and have happy kids.
Mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Yeah. So that's how I deal with anger, I guess. It's not worth it.
What were you going to say, Sheila?
Well, I wanted to add that it's just so, that's all part of what we're talking about here today, which is great. Where you have choices. There have been a couple of situations where I could have gotten mad, but I didn't. Or I got mad, and then I thought, like we're talking about, there are other options. Tony Robbins used to talk about comparing and contrasting. Thinking, and my mom used to say, there before the grace of God go I. Because you never know what people are going through. And I had a situation with a customer. And he was on the phone being rude, but I just kept going to do my job. And then he says, thanks, buddy. And I said, I'm not your buddy. And he got all mad. Most people don't get mad, but he got all mad. Aren't your buddy, man? And he really got mad, and I just stuck back. I let him just run his gas. I didn't respond. I just let him blow off steam or whatever. And then I went back and I thought, because he made a scene, he wanted to talk to a manager, and everybody was looking at. And then I did probably one of the things that was the hardest thing for me to do, because anyway, I went over because he went outside. Then he came back to come hunt me down. My back was turned to him. He said, I wouldn't be your buddy even if you paid me $1 million. And I'm thinking, what is your deal? And then I said, I am just so sorry that I called you that. Even though my heart, because I knew that was, I don't know, maybe to give him some relief, because I knew that there was another option. The option was that it's okay to just say you're sorry, even if it's not necessarily. I didn't really feel like I did anything wrong, but still, it may have given that person relief, and it made me think maybe he's gone through something that I don't know, like we talked about. Maybe his mom died, or maybe his brother or sister died, and maybe so. I just thought that was really, really amazing. So that was one of my moves.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. Absolutely. All right, let me go back to that. So you talked about those things that have happened. Thinking of that scroll bar that doesn't want to work. Here's ways that you could have responded to these situations in a different way. And that would be kind of like what I talked to you about, when I totally freaked out and I missed doing a one-on-one, and the sky was falling. And then when I said, wait, and then I started thinking about all the different things that I could do. And I'll tell you something else, and some of you, this will be a little too woo-woo for you, but NC State has actually done this. Our computers pick up on the energy that comes off of our bodies. And when you are anxious and stressed out, that energy goes into your computer. And how many of you have ever been trying to do something on a computer to get it out in a certain period of time and the computer started messing up? Mm-hmm. Are you trying to print something? That printer has been working beautifully and it ain't going to print nothing. It don't care. It's just, you get more upset and it doesn't work. So, really and truly, when we talk about that energy we give out in the world, man, it affects everything. And I was so in tune with it with NC State. When I heard about NC State doing that study, I was like, oh my gosh, that is so right. That is how it works, because I have done this. I've been in that movie.
That's strange.
Well, I think it's just important that you all are working and thinking towards this and what you can do. Does anybody want to share any, and you don't have to, but if anybody's got one that they want to share of looking back, how they would want to handle that differently the next time? For me, what I would like to do is, before I had that about 45 minutes of panic, I needed to have just gone, wait. Take a deep breath here. The world isn't ending. I didn't just die. Jeff didn't die. No children died. Everybody's alive. You know, how are we going to solve this? That's what I would like to do instead of the 45 minutes of just that I experienced, because that was my choice.
Yeah, I find myself doing what you say after you are already in a panic, and then you say, "Oh wait, we got to stop." So that's what I'll do a lot of times.
Right. And it's practice, and it's all practice, and it's practice, not perfection. All right, Now, there are circles of control, and the circles of control that we have is what you think, what you say, and how you behave. And the truth of the matter is that's all we have control of. Our babies let us know when we brought them home from the hospital that we didn't have control over them. And I laugh at mothers who say, I've got my child on a schedule. No, your child got on a schedule and you like it, but you didn't put that child, you don't put babies on schedules. Babies are going to cry when they want to eat. Babies are going to cry when they want to pee or poop, and you don't, the only person you have control of is yourself. And you have total control of that unless you choose not to. And then you are very much in the reactive state. What is so cool is the way that Cece has shared with us today how her illness, she chose to take control of what she had, and that was herself. And the quality of life goes up immensely. So that is a most thing. That is your true circle of control. Then you have, outside of that, you've got two circles of influence. And let me get so I can share. I'm going back and forth here. I get a little confused at times of whether I'm sharing or not sharing. Now I am, and we're going to go here. So there's two circles here. The two circles we deal with daily is our circle of influence and our circle of concern. What is your circle of influence? So we just talked about that. So what is the circle of influence? What do you think is in that in your life?
Jesus, love, light, goodness, smiling, happiness.
What you're choosing.
Yeah, what you choose.
Here's some things that I came up with. What you eat, how much sleep you get, how you exercise, voting, how you talk to others, how you respond at all times. Nobody can take those away from you, can they? Now, circle of concern is it's the results of the election. It's the weather. It's the national debt. It's terrorism. Now, people spend a lot of time looking at the circle of concern. What does paying attention to the circle of concern provide to you?
Fear.
Worry, fear.
What of those things you control?
None
Nothing.
of it. A big fat
None of
zero.
them.
Now, I do believe that it's not wise to pay no attention to them. But if you, circle of concern is the election results. What is the one thing you have control over there?
You vote.
Vote. If you're worried about other people not voting, that's a circle of concern. What would you do that would make you feel better about that?
Offer to take them or encourage them to register.
That's right. So what you want is you want your circle of influence through your life to get bigger and bigger, and your circle of concern to get smaller and smaller. That's the amount of time you see there. You want to look at that, but you don't stay there. And one of the things that I heard a speaker say not long ago was that what made him sad was that as people got old, they spent more time in the circle of concern and less in the circle of influence, feeling like they didn't have influence. But I look at Louise Hay, who started Hay House Printing at 61 years of age, died at 91, and Hay House was the largest self-help printing company in the world. Did she let age stop her?
No.
Now, whether you like Nancy Pelosi or not, I don't care. But she's 80 years old, and she's tough as nails, and she's still working and getting it. Would you like to be, do you think she's dealing with the circle of concern, or is she dealing in the circle of influence?
Influence.
RBG, the notorious RBG. I mean, days from dying, and it's not going to be honored, but she dictated a brief to her granddaughter so that everyone would know that it was her dying wish that her seat on the Supreme Court not be filled until the next president was put into office. And they may not go by it, but I'll tell you what the polls show, and that is that the majority of the people really believe, whether they're Republican or Democrat, that it shouldn't be this president, but the next president that fills the seat. So these are people that choose to keep that circle of concern, because if there's something in the concern, then figure a way to, I mean, you can't control the weather. What you can control? What you wear. You can't control the national debt. What can you do? You could teach class to young people about money management. You can't control terrorism, but could you do work on peaceful resolution in the community? So see, everything that is in your concern, take it out of that and put it into something that you're doing. And how will you respond? Well, there's a problem, there's a concern, and then how do you respond to it? How do you move out of the circle of concern and put it into the circle of influence? What new talent would you like to create in your life? And I want you to write this down. And you can share it or you don't have to. The talent, and I'll share mine with you, the talent that I'm working very diligently on is speaking Spanish. And I think I'm at about 265, 269 days now that I have consecutively worked on Spanish. And I'm getting better. I've got to get where, what I've got to do is now I just got to start speaking, because I'm reading it and I'm hearing it and I'm listening to it and I'm getting it. And I've got to work on it. But I went Humans Being More in December last year down in Greenville. And I was working on the goals that I was setting. And Jeff Isom shared that for 145 days, he had been working on French because he's already completely fluent in Spanish. And he could speak French, but he wasn't fluent in it. And that's where I was with Spanish. I could speak some, but I wasn't fluent. And I would go long times, and I thought, well, he's been doing Duolingo for 145 days. I keep saying that I want to speak Spanish. And I hadn't learned it, and I hadn't done, I would talk about all the things I hadn't done. And so it was just in concern. So I decided to put it in influence. And what I could do is I could do Duolingo every single day. And I've done it every single day. I'm really excited when December comes, I'll hit my 365 days, and I'm moving into intermediate Spanish now. And I love listening to it. I've just got to get better at talking it. And that's going to require something on me. So whatever the talent is, you make that decision. And the next thing I want you to write down is how will your life change and be different now that you have that talent? How will your life change now that you have that talent? And I want you to write that as if it's already occurred. I am so excited that I can speak with all the people that live in the United States that Spanish is their first language. I can travel to Latin American countries and speak fluently. I can more easily grow a Hispanic team where they don't even have to be bilingual and I can talk with them. So these are the ways that my life is different now that I'm fluent in Spanish. Does anybody want to share theirs?
I like to share.
Okay.
Well, Kimball, you know, because you're on Facebook. And I know this is really crazy and it's I don't know how altruistic it is, but mine is learning ventriloquism. Because I've always been good at doing impressions growing up, and I've always been doing good at voices. And I think I'm doing pretty good. And how will it change? Make people laugh again, to help people bring out their joy, to allow them, and to encourage youth that they can be anything they set their mind to. And just because I think there's just so much, there is a lot of sadness in the world. I think we need to be able to laugh again, and hopefully we'll be able to get there soon.
You know, Sheila, you probably don't know this, but Kathy is a ventriloquist.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You and Kathy need to chat.
Okay.
You all would have a lot to talk about with that. Kathy is, and she is a very talented ventriloquist.
Right.
Then why in the world are we not having some kind of talent show on here when we do these talks? We need to see these hidden talents that everybody has.
What I think we ought to do is one Saturday night, we should do a talent show. Everybody cook what they want for supper and everything, and all of us get together, and we can invite other people, but just for us. But because these are some things, because ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a while before we get back to normal.
Yeah, it will. Probably sometime next year is my figure.
I mean, I haven't looked, the numbers haven't come in today, but North Carolina has gone back up. The last 2 days ago, we went from 800 new cases to 1,800 new cases to 1,600 yesterday. So I think that we're getting ready, and we're opening up today. So
I saw on the news that most of that, I forget how many states it was, that all the numbers had gone up throughout this week. So I'm not surprised.
England had its largest number of new cases on Thursday that it's had since March. And Spain has tripled their new cases in the last 2 weeks. So the second wave has begun. So, and we may have to distance, but that doesn't mean that we don't have to be social. And the stronger we build our relationships, and we can do it through this media, the better we will all go through it. And I'll tell you, it's going to be needed because, ladies, the days are getting shorter. And when the days get shorter, people get more depressed.
Mm-hmm.
So we really do have a mission, to help people feel that they're a part. And so, yeah, we will get a talent show together, and we'll have 2 ventriloquists on. How cool! I mean, I am the only person in Nikki that has 2 on my team.
I bet you are too.
I would, well,
Awesome.
after this Zoom session, I need to ask Kathy where she gets her puppets from. Because I get mine from Axtell Expressions.
You have to see, like I said, the 2 really need that is too cool. All right.
Kimball, our governor, Virginia's governor, has tested positive for COVID. He has no symptoms as of yesterday, but his wife had mild symptoms.
Right. Well, you know, and I hope it stays that way. But remember, the Prime Minister of England, when he tested positive, was asymptomatic, oh, just mild symptoms. And then he ended up in the hospital about a week later, and they actually had somebody there at the hospital to read him the last rites and were planning on what they were going to do when he died. So that's the scary part of that, you know, and he said, oh, I'm going to go on working and all this stuff. You know what, if you get sick with this, you better take care of yourself. This idea of being John Wayne, it's way overrated. And just what, but about 70 years old when he died. He died young, but he didn't eat right and he smoked and he died of lung cancer. So I'm telling you, taking care of yourself is a good thing. I want you to think about, what weakness do you perceive that will keep you from developing that talent? And I will tell you that when I looked at Spanish, the weakness that I saw was it was procrastination and failure to prioritize it. And so the deal I made with myself was, I'm going on Duolingo, and Duolingo actually reminds you every day, and my husband reminds me. Like last night I had forgotten to do it, and we were in bed, and he goes, have you done your Spanish? And I was like, oh God. And I jumped up and went running over and grabbed my phone and went through and did my Spanish. But I made, you know, what was I going to do? So Jeff and I became buddies in that we were keeping each other on course and reminding each other. Duolingo was something that I could keep up with it. And I decided to let procrastination go. So you want to think about and just how you're going to overcome it. Because when we fail to plan, we're going to fail. It's a plan to fail. And whatever it is, you can change that. Now, and these have gotten, I got to find it. This happened last night. Hang on. Well, I'm going to just ask you the question. How do you stop an ant?
You squish it.
Cucumber peels.
You can't kill it. I'm not going to let you kill it. You can't kill it.
Cucumber peels.
You do what?
My mama said you put cucumber peelings out.
Okay. What do you think the ant will do with the cucumber peels?
She said they back up and go away, but you didn't really stop them. They'll find another way.
Well, that's logical because ants don't like water.
Right. But ants don't back up, just to let you know.
I don't know why she thought it was true.
Okay, so to stop an ant, how do you stop an ant? Killing it isn't the option. How do you make them back up? What if you put a heel in its path or a cucumber? You know what they do? They go around it.
Yeah.
You know, we are a species that has this big frontal cortex where we think. And it makes us different, but it doesn't always make us as successful as the animal. You know, that ant, you put something in its way or whatever, unless you kill it, he's going to keep going. All animals are that way. If there's something they want, they just keep going for it, and they just keep trying to get around it. Human beings and our big frontal cortex will sit back and say, oh, I can't do that. So what you want to kind of do things the way ants do them. What would you do with your business if you could not fail? What would you do with Meekin if it was impossible for you to fail? And I want you to think about it, and I want you to write it down. And if you want to share, I would love to hear it. But what would you do if you could not fail?
You're looking for what would we do financially if we did not fail?
what would you do with the business? I mean, would it be your goal to be a millionaire with it
Okay.
and create a program for disadvantaged women or abused women where they learned entrepreneurial skills? Would it just be that, it got big enough that you could pay for all your products and there's nothing wrong with that? I mean, that you earned enough that you could buy any of the products you wanted with what you made?
Got it.
What would you do? But what if you couldn't fail? If there was just no way you could fail with it, what would you do? Anybody want to share theirs? For me, I want to grow mine to the size that I'll never know the people, but there's a million lives to change. And Clay Johnson has done that. And as a byproduct of that, he was able to put his 11 children years ago on an airplane in Washington State and fly them to Disney World. Every summer, he pays for a magnificent vacation for his whole family. He has at times given people houses. Now, he advises people not to do that because what he found was they didn't take care of him. Well, one guy lost the house because he didn't pay the taxes.
Oh, goodness.
But that is a level of success that I want, because I will know the lives that I have changed. And that excites me. It's really about, and to have the money to be able, if someone is really in need, that I can give that without thinking about, oh, well, we have enough for this, or well, I have enough for that I can do it. That is huge. I'm not a Microsoft person, but I will forever be impressed with Bill Gates and what he has done with his money, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and where they give money all the time. And I think it's unfair. There are a lot of people who have money that give so much. And that's a desire for me. Anybody got anything that they want to share?
Well, my thought had been what you just said, this last part, to where your business could be doing well enough that those that you could not afford the product but really needed it, you could be able to give it to them and not worry about how am I going to pay for this.
Right.
Yeah.
And you get to that point, you can set up a nonprofit where people can donate to. You can set up a nonprofit where people buy the products from, which that means that it goes directly back into that nonprofit. I mean, there are lots of ways that this can be done. That's absolutely doable. Anybody else got anything?
The same.
Where would you travel if you could go anywhere?
Japan.
I highly recommend that. Having been there.
Switzerland.
Well, I want to go because my son's there. I haven't seen him now, and it'll be 2 years in March. Yeah.
I understand.
I don't think they're letting Americans in. I have the money to go now, but I don't think that I could go. And he's coming home in January.
Yeah, this is the first part, this is the first time in my life that as an American with a passport, I couldn't go anywhere in the world I wanted. They don't want us now.
Yeah.
Kind of sad. So Betty, I have been to Switzerland. I've been through Switzerland on a train, and the coolest part was it was in the dead of summer, and in the mountains there was still snow, and we were up in the mountains, and we would look down in the valleys, and it looked like miniature toy cities and that you could see down there. So I highly recommend Switzerland. I would like to have spent more time there, but that's a wonderful place. Where would some of the rest of you go? Shirley?
I would want to go to Portugal and Spain.
I've never been to either one of those. My youngest son fell in love with Spain, and his wife also is in love with it. And that's somewhere they want, once they get back from American Samoa, they want to do a trip there together. Because they've both been individually, but never together, and that's something they want to do.
I learned that my people come from there.
Sheila,
So
that's cool. Sheila, where would you go? Sheila, you're muted.
I would go to Canada.
Okay. Canada's one of my favorites. Shirley, how about you?
Well, I've always thought I'd like to go to Japan. And my sister went to Hawaii and she loved it, so maybe Hawaii. I don't know a bunch about the other countries. I've heard wonderful things about France,
I've never flown through France, but I've never explored it. Kathy, where would you like to go?
I don't know. When I first moved to Danville a little more than 30 years ago, my goal was to work here for 2 more years and then apply for an overseas position in Switzerland that would be a 2-year contract, because I thought it would be so cool to let my daughters go to a finishing school in Europe and have that experience. But things didn't work out that way, and instead of a yodeler on the Swiss Alps, I ended up with a Chathamite. So everything is just different. I love Canada. I love the idea of going through Canada because I think they have such the terrain. I mean, from Toronto, then all the way across to the Pacific Northwest, I just think would be a beautiful country to see and experience.
Absolutely. Jeff, where would you go?
New Zealand.
Oh, wow. I'll go with you.
Yeah, that would be a good place to go.
I thought he was going to say France, because for the longest kind of time he's talked about flying to France and eating lunch. So
Well, no, that was second on the list.
You got to go to New Zealand first, eat breakfast, then fly to France and eat lunch. There you go.
Yeah.
See, that's when you get big enough in the company, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yep,
You have your own
right.
private plane. You just go wherever.
Right.
But then you'll get too big to get on the plane if everything is eating.
Well, you can afford a personal trainer and a chef then. So hey, no problem.
Well,
Yeah.
don't forget to go to Switzerland for chocolate.
Yeah, that's right. Well, France is growing. There's more business in Europe, in Germany, than any other country, and there always has been, because they're very into holistic health, but it's growing very, very rapidly in France right now. What one thing change about your life right now, if you could?
Things would be less busy.
I'd become an only child.
Right. I want you to pull out a sheet of paper, and on this sheet of paper, I want you to write as many things as you can think of that are stopping you from achieving that goal right now. And to get out your sheet of paper, everybody got it? This is, and this is going to be one you're going to get rid of, so don't write it where you're writing now. This will be a separate sheet. All right, and I want you to start writing. Go. All right, I want you to take that piece of paper now, and I want you to rip it. Tear it up. Tear it up. Wad it up and throw it in the trash. You created that, and you can get rid of that.
Yeah, I got rid of it.
Now, really, I'm gonna give you this as the homework because I've gone over just a little bit. Plan, and I'd like for you to bring it to Wednesday night. I want you to write a plan with 5 steps to live one of your dreams. 5 things that you're going to do. And they don't have to be great big. One of them could be writing your goals every morning. You know, that's just statistically and significantly changes the likelihood that you'll do something. Writing that goal as if you've already achieved it. But write a 5-step plan, and then I want you to bring it on Wednesday night, and we'll talk about it. Has this been helpful?
Very good.
I want to,
Very
you know,
good.
it's sad that we couldn't do humans being more, but, you know, I got to thinking about it. I thought, you know what? As a team, this might be even more significant for us. I mean, these are the kind of things you do in Humans Being More. For those that have been, kind of know that. And I teach these things a lot. And I thought, well, gosh, we need to do this. So I always believe that everything works out just as it should at just the right time. And I'm going to finish today with a Margaret Mead quote that you've heard me say, I'm sure, over and over again, but I never get tired of it. Never underestimate what a small group of committed people can do. They can change the world, and in fact, they are the only thing that ever has. Now, I just don't believe that there's ever been a time that the world needed what Nikan has any more than it does right now. And you know, Mr. Masuda died just as this pandemic got started, just before the company was 45 years old. I mean, within a month. And in some ways, I sort of see that as it was being passed on to the next generation. In Japan, they write business plans for 100 years.
Wow.
They have mortgages for 100 years because houses are passed on to next generations of families. And I really believe that, you know, we have something, and just start little things, but whatever it is you want to do, maybe it's not your business. Maybe it's something with your family. Maybe it's something with your community. Maybe there's a clothes closet that you want to get started. I mean, I've watched what Shirley changes lives all the time with the one in her church. Maybe you want to be a ventriloquist, and maybe you're going to end up being a YouTube star as a ventriloquist, Sheila. Maybe that's something Kathy will start. It doesn't matter. But think about what this is. Write your 5-stage plan, and then we're going to share when we're back together on Wednesday. I like to finish promptly, so we're 11 minutes after. I'm going to turn off the recording, which I believe I can, and then if there's, let's hit stop.